Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Today is June 22nd, 2025, and our talk today is the gift of diversity. And we wanted to talk about diversity because it's been maligned a little bit
A little bit.
with DEI being pushed out of every place possible, meaning diversity. Um, E stands for
Inclusion.
no, I stands for inclusion, diversity, something, equity. Yeah, yeah, about that, being fair, equity,
I'm hearing
and
voices too.
inclusion. But I think that's a wonderful thing. It should be, should be a principle in every affair, but instead it's
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
taken out of everything because it includes, the equity for Black and brown people. It seems to me that's my interpretation of it.
Well, there's lots of it, but unfortunately, racism is alive and well and in our society. And I think what the efforts towards diversity have meant is that we have begun to confront those differences. And so there's two ways to deal with it. One would be to confront the problems we're having with racism, or the other is to simply step back into the 50s before we actually had this thing called diversity, or before we considered something that had any value. So it's a backlash to some of the movements to all of the progress that's been made in that area. But I don't want for us to dwell on what has and hasn't happened, but to look at the benefits of diversity. You see, where's your controller, please? And turn the volume down here so we don't hear everybody coming in. Okay. So what did you want to say?
Well, what I wanted to say is we thought it was a nice time to talk about it, just as uh, the roundups are happening all over our country, but particularly in California. And they've changed the rules of who cannot be here, and they're being very harsh on people. Many who've been here for 13 years, but they have not had their final clearance, and they're just saying, "Sorry, you got to go." And it really it does seem very pointed against brown skinned people. And of course, it's already been pretty clear that everything has been cut off financially for Black people. So we thought, well, let's talk about diversity and inclusion. And just as we are planning that, last night we watched the news and saw, oh, we our country just bombed the nuclear facilities in Iran last night, and have taken them out of operation, I believe. And so now they are threatening a retaliation, and we're going to be back in that same situation against brown skinned people.
So then
Although they're not all brown, many of them are as white as we are.
So then the question is, what do we do when we're in crisis? What do we do when the ground seems unsteady? When everything around us seems to be either upside down or getting turned upside down? And I think one of the first things we do is we turn to prayer. And I think sometimes we often use prayer, like I said, sometimes as a backup, as opposed to as the place to start. We use it as something that we do when things are breaking, like they're breaking now. For those of us who have been using what we call prayer treatment for the long time, if you haven't been doing that, this would be a very, very good time for us to do that, to be prayerful in everything we do. Prayerful in that monitoring our own reactions and our own actions and asking ourselves, does what I'm saying and what I'm feeling support the prayer that I'm having or the prayer that I'm engaged in? Am I living a more prayerful life? And I think this is a time for us to really focus in on how are we treating each other? How are we treating ourselves? Are we examples of the thing that we want to see? Or are we trying to get behind one side or another? And I think it's really, really important for us to not take sides. I don't know how this is going to work out. If it works out well, everybody will say it was a good move. If it doesn't work out well, a lot of people, and if not everybody, will say it wasn't a good move. It's too early to predict, but it isn't too early to be prayerful. It isn't too
Good
early.
idea.
It isn't too early for us to take a stand for peace, however that might look, wherever that might happen. From what I'm able to see today and looking on the internet, it looks like in a whole lot of areas things are getting worse very quickly. And that may mean that they're going to be able to get better very quickly as well. I don't know. But if there's anything we can do, it's try not to take a position. Try not to be in a place where we react to what's going on, but rather we take a more prayerful stance in that. I'm reminded of the old monk story that and I'm sure you've heard, where the two monks are walking, and there's a woman who's headed towards a large puddle, I think it is, and
No, stream of water.
stream of water, and the one monk lifts her up, picks her up, and
Carries her
carries
on their
her,
arm on his back.
yeah, and then sets her down after they get done, and that's done. But the one monk who did it continues to go on and on and on in his head about I shouldn't have done
No,
this.
the observer said that.
What are you doing?
Two monks, there were two monks, and one monk said that's against your vows. You're not supposed to touch a woman.
That's right.
And why did you do that? That was wrong. And so the one who did the carrying looked at him and said, I put her down. I put her down at the river. You're still carrying her.
Exactly. See, I sort of remember the story. I got the punchline, yeah. But the bottom line is, are we still carrying whatever that burden is? Judith has something she wants to show us because she's on her cell phone.
Well, I read something.
There we go.
It has to do with how are you going to deal with this business of now we may be at war.
Yeah.
And I have very mixed feelings about it too, because I can see how it needed to be done also. But I don't like war at all. But anyway, who are we in this event is what I'm looking at. And I had a reading that was shared. This is from spiritual guides of someone. And it says, who will have your opinions? No, you will have your opinions, and they may differ from others. How do those opinions make you feel? And how do you feel when they differ from others? The more you pay attention to the opinions and feelings, the stronger they grow, and the more you forget that you are not only human. Peace is your middle name. Your first name is silent, pure, and without any differentiation at all. It is known by all, for it is the all before differentiation. And your last name is whatever story you have chosen to express in this incarnation. You are not static, dear one. You can choose to be the witness of all of the opinions at any time as you shift to your center, from which your middle name arises, and remember to flow. So your middle name is peace. And I just thought that was a beautiful poetic expression of how to deal with this conflict. That's why I wanted to share.
Yeah, that's fine. That's beautiful.
Because here we are, we're talking about diversity and appreciating differences and loving everyone and what, and then boom, we just may have started a war.
I'm reminded of, I think it was Ellen DeGeneres doing a comedy act, and she was doing a meditation, and she was being peaceful and loving and kind, and a fly or something, landed on her, and she killed it, and then went back to peace and love and joy. It's a we are so quickly drawn into battle when something offends us or upsets us, and it's so important for us to. I don't think we should let the fly stay there, but we could say to it. Could have said to a better place.
A little flick.
Yeah, right. Something else to share with us.
Yes. Well, it's about inclusion and diversity and
go ahead.
I'm trying to find my reading. While we may not always agree, each challenge presents an opportunity to practice emotional regulation, to heal our own trauma, and to use our voices to advocate for ourselves and others. Different definitions of unity may lead to conflict, but such conflict invites discussion, healing, and transformation. So that's what we'd like to see, healing and transformation. And we need to practice that in our daily lives.
Yeah.
here as well. I think most of the people that we're talking to right now do that already. And so it's jarring when we see things happening in our country that are not inclusive and accepting of diversity at all. And the reason we do that, and I was telling Bob, and I think some of you before, that I lived in Germany, and they have a long history of valuing purity of the bloodline. Hitler didn't invent that. That was a very German strong belief that you wanted to be pure German. And so they were kind of shocked with my American mezcla, the mix of so many different
Nationalities. Yeah.
nationalities and things. And I was really surprised that they have accepted so many people from the South into their country. They need them as workers, actually, but they tend to be very exclusive of people who look different and act different. And that's the one thing I love about our country. And it makes us richer and more diverse, and there's something to appreciate in all those cultures. You don't have to believe what they believe, but you can appreciate the differences and the richness in it, and all of that makes us better, actually.
I was talking to a zoo veterinarian some time ago, and he impressed me with his understanding of what a dog should look like. And he said if dogs were allowed to breed on their own, unconnected, disconnected to anybody who wants a particular breed, he said dogs would probably never weigh more than 45 pounds, and they would all have similar features because they would have the features they needed to best survive, not the ones that they're most admired. And that they, because of the diversity, they would have the largest or the best chance of surviving disease and any other condition. And so what's really interesting in the animal kingdom is how important diversity is. I know that there's we just saw recently a park that was opened in Africa, and they brought in animals that hadn't been there, but they had to bring in animals from different regions of Africa so that the diversity of the DNA allowed them to have healthy offspring. What's really interesting, we know genetically that diversity is a plus, and we act as if anything different from us isn't. And so it's really, really
It
important for us to,
actually, yeah, makes people healthier and
yeah,
better
we just,
and even more beautiful. We found that
yeah.
even the mixture of the races makes people more beautiful. It's really
Right,
interesting.
and we tend when the people who have a diverse background rise to the top of the ladder of visibility, they're admired and photographed and appreciated for that beauty, even though on the way up they're often discarded and told that they don't belong.
Right. Yeah.
So, but what's really, really, really important again is for us to monitor our own reaction to the conditions around us and ask ourselves what would be the most peaceful trip or place we could go? What would be the most peaceful behavior? What would be the thing that I'd like to have done if I were in a situation like this? And ask ourselves that and monitor our own behaviors, because there's going to be a whirlwind of attitude and propaganda for any action that's taken. And I've already seen that. I mean, I've already seen on the news that there's a whole group of people who are wanting to argue about that it shouldn't have happened, and then there's another whole group who are arguing that it was the best thing that could have happened. If we can stay out of the argument, if we can support all the people who are arguing for their highest and best, I think we have a better chance of coming out of this situation with our consciousness unscathed.
Truly. And so I wanted to share some quotes by our founder, Ernest Holmes, our founder of teaching, which is called The Science of Mind. And he says, compassion and caring are the ties that bind us in mutual understanding and in the unified attempt to uncover the diversity in each other. Compassion is the most gentle of all human virtues, for it is the outpouring of the divine givingness through all. And that's from a Holmes reader. He also says, always there's an inner quiet, persistent and confidence, a non-resistant but complete acceptance and inward flowing with the stream of life, knowing that it carries me safely and surely to my destination and the accomplishment of every good purpose. So he definitely believed in inclusion and diversity and acceptance.
Somehow along the line, what I've heard is that people equate compassion and empathy as connected to weakness rather than strength. And so I think it's really important to recognize compassion as a strength, as a source of power, and as something to empower us in our consciousness on a daily basis. And I think if we do that, if we recognize it as a strength, then we're less vulnerable to the attacks that come from, well, that's just a weakness. It's just you liking everybody. Well, yes, actually, that is me doing the best I can to like everybody, because the more I can find likable about more people, the more I can learn from those people, and the greater the wisdom is that I will have as my life unfolds.
Uh, Speaking of that, I remembered something today that I wanted to share. That's a difference between males and females. When we worked at an inpatient addiction program, we did pretty intense groups of kind of psychodrama type events, and it would really bring up people's trauma. And there was usually a lot of crying and gnashing of teeth before the healing became. And I noticed that one of the men said to me, he says, "Oh, I came so close to losing it there." And I said, "Tell me what you mean by losing it." Because had that if a woman had said that, I came close to losing it, I would have inferred that she meant losing her temper. She would have been really angry and maybe said some things she didn't mean. And that's what women usually mean by losing it. But I said, "What do you mean by losing it?" And he said, "Well, I almost cried." And of course, tears is something we were trying to get to. And I had no idea that a man or a man might think that I'm losing control, because boys are taught boys don't cry.
Right.
Don't cry. And girls are told not to be angry.
See, we are born with a very, very small number of tears.
Well, I do think hormonally with the
Yeah.
testosterone, it does limit the tears.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that he defined losing it as to cry. So, so a lot of people feel that being strong is being protective of self, of my race, and
And
my
crying is
people.
weakness.
Yeah, and including others. We started out in tribes, and so other tribes could be dangerous to your tribe, and so that's where the exclusion began. But it is so unnatural for human beings. We really, regardless of skin color or culture, we are all human beings, and we have more in common than we have different.
True.
Uh, so really, really becoming compassionate means recognizing that in others and in yourself.
See, the biggest problem today that we have here on our Zoom is that we're preaching to the choir.
I know that.
And so what I know and we both know, and so does everyone else. But I think what I want to say is we need to encourage each other if we can. If you're having a hard time being compassionate, call one of us and let's talk. To connect with somebody, because what we're talking about is something that everybody on this listening post knows, but not everybody feels comfortable or confident all the time and can maintain it. And so the more support we have for that, the more likely we are to continue to be in a position of helping this world get through whatever struggles there are. We know we have a role in getting through this. We have a position, and the position we take will either impede or will encourage. And so being a place of love and a place of kindness and a place of compassion is a hard but very, very important job. And all of us I know on this broadcast are already doing that, but I want you to know that we support your doing that. So the next time you get frustrated, you can say, well, Judith and Bob, they support me. The other members of the center, which I won't mention their names, they support me. I know I'm not alone in this. Let me know that I'm not walking this by myself. And that's really, really important.
Um, I wish that I just had something really important to say, and now I'm trying to remember it. but it has to do with, oh, it has to do with white privilege. A few years ago, our home office brought to our attention some education about white privilege. And, rather ignorantly, I assumed I didn't have that because I like black and brown people and I think I'm kind and I didn't have any of that. But what it's talking about is you don't recognize the privilege you've had because you've always had it and your family's always had it and so you don't think it's there. But it is there. You have privileges that other people do not, particularly brown and black people. They do not get the automatic privilege of esteem and superiority, maybe self-imposed superiority, but nevertheless, it is assumed in our country. And because of that, we get preference and privilege in a lot of ways. Certainly, I saw it growing up in the South in the 50s and 60s. I witnessed the lack of equality with that assumption of privilege that we have and the lack of understanding that people had white people had about people of color and it's largely from fear,
Mhm.
but it's really not nice. And I always thought because I recognized it was not nice and not okay that I didn't exercise white privilege. But the fact of it is, we all do automatically because it's given to us.
Mhm.
We don't have to ask for it, it's given to us. And that's in the jobs you get when you apply for them, it's in so many things, the way people treat you. ICE isn't hunting you down just because of your skin color. We saw a man, arrested for stepping into a street because his skin color, I think, because he really would not have qualified for deportation under past president. So it
These are
brings it to our attention
these are
when things don't seem fair.
difficult times. And what I find myself saying again and again is that every breakdown is an opportunity for a breakthrough. And so I don't know how many breakdowns we have to have, and I don't know how long the breakthroughs are in waiting to happen. But I'm encouraged that as we become more conscious of our of the effect we have on people, we become more effective as people. And we become more able to be advocates for love because we're expressions of it rather than uh, being careful not to express anything. So what I'm asking all of us to do is to support each other as best we can, to support each other in prayer, to support each other in consciousness and know that you're not alone. And we will get through this. Not only that, but we'll get to the other side. And on the other side, there'll be things that we never could have imagined happening that are for our good because we're making room for them right now.
Yes, so let's know the highest and best is occurring here, even without our opinions, and just expect the best. So, shall we
Yeah,
do a screen share here?
sure.
Okay, sure. Thank you. I was looking for a screen and I saw share. So at this time, we'd like to welcome contributions. And we've had some very generous contributions this month, and we're really grateful to all of you who support this teaching, this ministry, this corporation. We have corporate expenses for being the Center for Spiritual Living of the Palm Beaches, Inc. And we're very grateful for that ability. And we appreciate all the support that comes our way from our listeners. And we invite you at this point to say this affirmation because we do believe as we give, we do receive. And it is pressed down, flowing over, and multiplied. So let's say today, my investment today is made with a full realization that God is the source of my supply and returns it to me
enriched and multiplied.
So I just wanted to point out this is the first page of our of our website, which is cslpalmbeaches.org. And when you open that website, there's a little button up here, ways to donate. And that's how you may support us. So we'll close that now. We'll end recording. Just past it. End recording.
No. Nope, wrong one.
I was pointing.